It is 1 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Cincinnati Bengals announced today they have signed head coach Zach Taylor to a contract extension through 2026. After winning 6 total games in his first 2 years, Taylor took the Bengals to a 10-7 record in 2021, an AFC North championship, and a Super Bowl appearance. Taylor also came out and said Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow played through a sprained MCL in the Super Bowl on Sunday. Day 12 of the Winter Olympics in Beijing. The U.S. picked up its 8th gold medal on Tuesday as Alex Hall won men's slopestyle skiing. America's men's hockey team fell out of the tournament last night in the quarterfinals. An upset loss to Slovakia by a penalty shootout. The U.S. is third in gold medals and total medals behind number 1 Norway and Germany. Tonight, Vanderbilt is 13-11, traveling to second-ranked Auburn to take on the Tigers. Vandy coming off a loss at Tennessee on Saturday. Tip-off tonight is at 8 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Never mind us. We're just in the studio having a lengthy conversation.
Yeah.
And Lucas is waving at us. I'm like, hey, man.
We were talking about
Lucas.
woodchucks.
Yeah, Blaine posted his, there's a promo running on the station. Have you got that? Do you have access to those promos? Can you run the promo that's running right now? And Blaine tweeted a picture. We retweeted on Blaine and Mickey Twitter. Yeah. There's a promo of Blaine talking about life as a baby on a diet.
Yeah, because our boss there, Mr. Mason, Paul Mason, pulled that and put it on like, I guess it plays periodically throughout the day. So I said, well, let me go because I heard it. I kept saying, damn, I'm going to go get that picture I'm talking about. And that was the best picture I could find. There was some.
Oh, I think it's fine.
I had some worse ones. I didn't want to put it out there where I had rolls on my neck and stuff. I just thought that was like a little too far for me. So, yeah.
At the beginning of his life, many probably didn't think Blaine Bishop was destined to be a Titans All-Pro safety.
I was on a diet as a baby. They used to call me Woodchuck. And so I was real big. I had rolls on my neck, and, I was just big, man. My aunt told me this. And I go ask her mom, she said, oh, yeah, you just wouldn't stop eating. I was like, yeah, I was loving that milk, wasn't I?
Blaine and Mickey today.
So, not these guys are experts at talking about sports. Blaine was fat as a baby. That's how we advertise our show.
Man, I mean, my mom was I was never really taller than my mom. My mom was 5'11", 5'10 and a half-ish, big woman, and I was born 11 pounds. Yeah, so that's kind of where it all started. Yeah, so I was, I'm like, my dad was 5'11", so they were the same height. So it was kind of, I took everything after my dad as far as like bow legs and all of that. But as far as just mass, I was thick, man. And that was a conservative one. That was the first one I saw. And then I saw some more. I was like, oh, no, I can't do that. That's a little embarrassing.
Oh, there's better ones?
Oh, with rolls on my neck.
Please put those out.
Well, one of them, I didn't want to put a naked baby picture out there. So
somebody can Photoshop out.
I said, I'm not going to do that.
Somebody can Photoshop out your goods and services there.
Yeah, I'm not that, technology savvy. I didn't have time for all that. So I thought I'd put a nice, conservative one out there. So, yeah, man. So I wanted to match up what that conversation was with, and that's back in that day, Mickey, we're older, is that my mom would write on every picture the date and what happened there. And I was one at that time. So it's just, man, it's amazing. I should put out a picture of me and my mom so everybody could just see like how she was a massive, big woman.
So 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah. So it took me literally all the way to college before I was as tall as my mom. Yeah.
Lonzo in the chat.
I was like, dang, man. I'm not even. Taller than my mom.
That should have helped your recruiting. When people look like,
I know
this guy's going to grow a lot.
Well, yeah,
big as mom, yeah.
Well, back then it was, I wasn't going on a lot of business. It wasn't even like that. I was. If it was me, I should have kept my dad home and brought my mom, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's because he was 5'11". He was the tallest in his family. See, so my genes took everything about it. I mean, I have uncles 6'4", 6'6", 6'8".
On your mom's side.
Yeah, my mother's side. Yeah.
I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
It's a true story. And people who
and I
know
was like, dang, I could at least got 6'1". I was hoping to get to 6 feet.
I'm the tallest person in my family of all the Ryans.
and the lightest, as we were discussing before we went on air. Because Mickey graduated high school at 127 pounds.
127. I went home after my freshman year. I was 133, and the lady at the Dairy Queen told me how fat I had gotten. I said,
Compared to the last time she saw you.
I said, I'll have a water. Then I got in my truck and drove home and ran 6 miles. And threw up in a bean field.
Yeah, those are different times. That is for sure.
Lonzo says, "Hey, Mickey, Lucas, and Woodchuck." Then he also said they can Photoshop out your ding dong of the week.
I was real. I was like, this is not too funny, man. If it would have just like had my backside or something, I was cool. But I was like laying on my back, it's always interesting. You go back and look at, pictures your family take. You're like, man, why were they taking pictures of me naked getting a bath?
Everybody loves a fat baby.
Everybody.
Man, it was definitely fun to look at the photo albums there.
My son was a baby. We called him Fat Rabble.
Which I was Fat Rabble.
Fat Rabble, not to his face, because he was a baby. We didn't want to ruin his self-esteem, but that period of his life is known as Fat Rabble.
So he was Rabble from the jump.
Oh, yeah, he was always Rabble.
I just figured that was something he developed.
He developed into.
No, I called him Rabble at the hospital. Rabble was born in the same hospital in rural Arkansas that I was born in 45 years later.
Dang.
45 years later, he was born in the same hospital as me.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and people were like, "Is this your grandson?" I was like, "No, he's my son." I drug my heels a little bit. Yeah,
no, I think that's always awesome, though. Man, that's going to keep you revving
Either that and going. I have a muscle pulled from the back of my knee up to whatever this bone is right here. What's that?
Scapula or something.
Yeah, the whole thing feels like it's locked up.
What would you do? Would you play kick?
We were playing soccer.
Oh, my.
He put the change of direction on me, and I went down like I'd been shot. I said, "We got to find you some younger people to play soccer."
He didn't give you the Derrick Henry straight arm?
No, he doesn't stiff arm me. He just puts the move on me.
So you weren't flopping?
Nah.
No, I didn't flop, dude. I thought we were going to take me to the ER. This is bad.
Hey,
I told him, once you get to be Dad's age, like things don't move and stretch like they used to. So
he don't give a rat's you know what about it.
Zero.
He wants to play with Dad, and he wants to go kickball and catch these putts and all that, man. Yeah, I saw y'all at work, man. You kind of let me take over, throw some balls to him. I was like, oh man, I didn't ask for trouble. This will never end.
He would have done that for 3 hours if you'd
I was like, hey man, can you see the ball? He's like, okay, throw it right there. I can see it. He couldn't see anything. That ball go right by his head. I was like, man, I gotta go. I gotta go get some more food in there. Your mom made for us.
All right. I have to ask you this, Lucas. Let's shift gears on this. I know you talked about it a little bit earlier. I want to get Lucas's perspective on this dust-up between the Vols and Kentucky last night and their strength coach, who is Rabble's size currently.
That is fine. Yeah, he was pretty short, though, man. I would have given him about 5'4".
Gary Coleman Sr. What you talking about, Zakai Ziegler?
Rob Harris, I believe, is his name. I like the bust-up. The game was heated, so I liked that after the first TV timeout, you've got a little bit of a scrum on the bench and technicals being handed out. I like that. That's some juice to the rivalry. It's a rocking environment. But not when it's a assistant coach, a strength coach, trying to body up a freshman. Like Bob Kessley was talking about it today. He's supposed to be in high school, Zakai Ziegler is. And Rob Harris is out here puffing his chest at him because he's shorter than Zakai Ziegler is. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, he was kind of swole, too. He just, he looked like he had wide shoulders, like he's the strength coach or something.
Yeah, but he's their trainer.
Wide as he is tall.
And you know what? That shouldn't even happen because the other coach over there, whoever else that was over there, was trying to help up the Tennessee players
that were.
And then the players came over there, and it was no big deal until he tried to swell up and kind of like push him and like get away from here. And then I was listening to Coach Barnes talk about their, like they can't put it on him per se. Like he said, well, I'm going to just have a trainer go after one of their players in another game then. If they can't get a technical foul or kick him out of the game or what have you. So that shouldn't even really happen. I blame that all on that individual staffer there on the sideline because I thought the players were kind of stand up on it. Then it got naturally a little emotions over there. And once somebody starts pushing and shoving, then you don't know what could happen. So I'm glad it didn't get out of control. I thought the refs did a good job on that. Just gave technical fouls both ways and just said, let's squash this and we're going to be real critical from here on out. So, yeah. But it was a great atmosphere, a lot of electricity. You could feel it even through the TV, listening and watching the game, man. It was awesome to see Tennessee play really well, start off good on the offensive side, moving the ball really well, hitting a lot of perimeter shots. And then Falky and, some other guys, naturally, Vescovi, Kennedy had a great game. I mean, man, they played to the level that I haven't seen them play consistently for a while. And, they look totally opposite than the time they played Kentucky before. And their defense is always pretty much on point when you're, a Rick Barnes Tennessee team. So I was excited to see that and just see if they can do it consistently. Because they got the next 4 or 5 games here. They got some tough ones. They could kind of determine. They still got a shot at the SEC title. Right?
Yeah, Auburn would have to slip up once against
but
the
they
team.
play them. But they play them.
They do play. They're 2 games back of Auburn, so they would need Auburn's strength of schedule isn't great down the stretch. They need them to maybe have a bit of a clunker against a Missouri or a South Carolina. But yeah, no, Arkansas next, Missouri, and then it's Auburn, and then you got to play Arkansas again, and then Georgia, and that's about it.
I know we have Mike Wilson on, next, but. Does Folky always play well versus Kentucky? Every time I watch him play against Kentucky, I go, man, Folky always has a good game against them. I think he went into the game thinking he was going to have a good game because he always does. Yeah, it seems like it.
Best game of his career was in Rupp Arena right before the pandemic in 2020 when Tennessee got that win up there. That wasn't a very good Tennessee team. That was kind of on the bubble. So, yeah, he seems to step up in those moments. That was a vintage John Fulkerson performance, right? Yeah. 14 points, 8 rebounds, just all over the place, falling on the floor, creating whistles, and probably angering Kentucky fans to their core.
Oh, well, yeah, for sure. But, Ziegler, Jordan J. I mean, it was a lot of guys that really contributed. Great team effort. But, man, they play like that, man. They can go on a deep run in the tournament. I really believe that if they play like that, and naturally it won't be home games at neutral site, but man, I was thoroughly impressed. It was kind of where I dove in, and I'm gonna just be all about Tennessee, and I'm gonna watch this game, and then get their guard field. Really, when they have success, 3 guards are out there. Really, Jordan James is kind of that utility guy who could do a lot of different things. Where he's, can be the point guard. He could be the, 2, 3. He could be a 4 in a crunch, depending on the lineup out there. So, yeah, I think they got a lot of flexibility, and to have success in the tournament, you got to have great guard play. So when they're hitting perimeter shots, that was impressive.
Yeah, they what's that? 8 straight SEC games. Rick Barnes, 9-7 all time at Tennessee against Kentucky?
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, with only 1 home loss, I believe.
They haven't lost at home all year, have they?
No, they are unbeaten at home this year.
So I will be very interested as we dwindle towards March. How I put a question last night, a poll question on Blaine and Mickey. I was just curious because I thought, okay, Vol fans are going to be euphoric right now after this win. How far do you think this team can go? And it was round of 32, round of 16, Elite 8, Final 4. And I said, reply all if you think they'll lose in the first round or win it all or go to the Final 4. Nobody responded that way. Last time I looked, Sweet 16 was the clubhouse leader.
And if you asked that question a month ago, a lot of people would be saying first round exit, second round at best.
Yep. So this run that they've been on has been pretty amazing.
I thought it was cool, too. So, after the game, the players went up here and thanked the fans because they were really loud and electric. I kind of like that, man. They've been, man, that was loud, man. That was big time. Like they're a basketball program loud. That was pretty unique. I actually wanted to be sitting in this, the stadium there with them, to arena to, be part of that atmosphere. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch now attendance at sporting events and just who is drawing people for what. and they are drawing people like crazy for basketball. I mean, the football thing is a given up there, but oh my gosh, you're right. That crowd was nuts last night. Yeah. I was watching slope style from the Olympics on my TV, and I was watching the Vols in Kentucky on my phone. Even on my phone, it was electric. It was a fun time. Even on a tiny phone, it was electric atmosphere. Mike Wilson was there. He is, man, nobody covers Vols basketball like him, and he will join us next. We'll get all the inside info from Mike Wilson. Knoxville News Sentinel next on Blaine and Mickey.
Yeah, I see how much he weighed when he's born.
Hey, Rocket, what's my mortgage rate? Rocket, when am I closing? Is anyone there? Rockets are really cool, but they don't speak mortgage. You need a home loan expert for that. Get pre-approved for your next mortgage at thehomeloanexpert.com.
Chandler holds it, gives to Fulkerson, top of the key. Working on Sheboy. He drives him again. Spins in traffic. Goes up, puts it off the glass and in. Talk to me, Fulkerson taking it right at Sheboy.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. The dulcet tones of one Robert Kessling getting you back in. You can always hear him and the Vol Network right here on 104.5 The Zone. You can hear Mike Wilson on The Zone right now because he joins us right now.
Well, everybody, did you
Sentinel.
tweet out? We got to ask everybody how much they weighed when they were born. Do you know, Mike, how much you weighed when you were born?
I have no idea.
Oh!
I don't know what time I was born. I don't know how long I was, how much I weighed. I just know that I was born.
Well, there's proof of that. We're talking to you right now. We're absolutely born.
Thanks, Mike. We appreciate that you were
Breaking news, Mike Wilson was born.
Yeah. With that being said, Tennessee looked like they were born last night, man. I hadn't seen them play that well on offense all season with all the ball movement, the movement around, defense, and everything else. So they got off to a great start. The crowd was electric. Kind of take us through your overview of what you saw and how it felt there with the atmosphere.
Man, that's as good as I've seen Thompson-Boling Arena in my 5 years here. I thought that was an incredible environment. And I also thought just when you talk about the team and what that win means, it's validation for the past month. They'd won 7 straight SEC games entering that, but it hadn't really been against that top tier in the SEC. They'd beaten LSU, but LSU's really tailed off. This was validation. This was, all right, ever since that loss at Kentucky, Tennessee's kind of figured out its attitude, its identity, and this was proof that they can do it against the best of the best because Kentucky has a team that could reach the Final Four, and Tennessee really stuck it to them yesterday.
Yeah, we're on with Mike Wilson with Knoxville News Sentinel. I guess I have to ask you, we were just talking about it, and that is, man, they still got a shot of winning the SEC. I was talking to Lucas about that, and what do you think their odds are that they could actually pull that off? Got to need some help, too, but, hey, they play some of the teams that they're going to be competing with, at least Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee would have to beat Auburn to do that and then need a little bit of help because I think Auburn's only got the one SEC loss right now, and Tennessee is sitting at 10-3, so it would require some help, but if you win out, you certainly have a shot there because then if Auburn loses one other, you're tied, you have the tiebreaker. But Tennessee also does still have 2 games against Arkansas, which is kind of tough because Arkansas wasn't playing well at all a month ago, but they've really figured it out. Now Tennessee gets them twice in the final 5 games of SEC play, including the one this Saturday on the road at Bud Walton Arena, which is a very tough place to play. So Tennessee's right in that mix. I think they basically all but locked up a double bye in the SEC tournament, which is a very big deal. But winning it would be a pretty good feat at this point, given what it would take and the help it would take.
How surprised were you of the play? I think you worked on an article on him, the freshman big man. What's his name? Adu or?
Yeah, Jonas Adu. Yeah.
Adu, yeah. Well, I mean, man, because, everybody played really well, but, I mean, it's almost like the light switch came on and he was, acting like he had been pretty much a contributor the entire season.
It's wild to see because it's a guy who played 15 minutes in the first 22 games of the year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then played 16 in the 2 before this one. Comes out and plays 18 minutes against the number 3 team in the country, number 4 team in the country, depending on which poll you use, and played really well against a National Player of the Year candidate. What I kind of wrote was, this guy didn't just play, he belonged. And to say that about someone who played so little is absolutely mind-blowing. And I likened it earlier to someone. It's like a trade deadline acquisition in MLB, NBA. Because Tennessee basically just added a 10 to 15 minute a game guy in February. And you don't get to do that very often or say that very often in college basketball. So it's a crazy addition to see Jonas Adu doing what he's doing. And it's really important for Tennessee given Olivier Kamwa out.
We're on with Mike Wilson, Knoxville News Sentinel.
Mike, I know you also wrote recently about Zakai Ziegler, and he's just kind of become that guy. Like he's that lightning bolt in the game for the Vols, but his story is pretty dang remarkable. It
is. And I think in shedding some light on the story that Zakai has, you kind of understand why he plays the way that he does. I mean, there's just such a fearless nature to how he plays and such an attitude, and it's so different. I really think that is honestly an attitude that Tennessee needed on this roster, is just a guy who plays the game with kind of such an abandonment, a controlled abandonment. And you see that in defense. You see that on offense. You see him do it throughout the game. And I think it's really affected his teammates, which when you consider it's a guy who wasn't even on the roster at the start of the preseason, that's also pretty remarkable to say about somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just been such a revelation. You know, teams always have these really high number of star guys, and, you know, they're going to go to the NBA in a year. And then here's Zakai Ziegler just stealing all the headlines.
100%. And I think he's in double figures now in maybe 7 straight games.
Wow.
And when you look at Tennessee's kind of offensive resurgence lately, I think a lot of it ties into Ziegler and also Josiah Jordan-James, because both of those guys have been pretty consistent double-digit scorers. I think Josiah's been terrific for the past month, especially since that Texas loss. He just looks like such a different, assertive offensive player. As those two guys have kind of come on, and I think Kennedy Chandler falls in that category too in the past 2 weeks. I mean, he's playing tremendous basketball. That's really what's changing this offense, because it was so much a Santiago Vescovi show for, you know, the greater part of 3 months, but now there's a whole bunch of guys getting it done.
Yeah, and Ziegler obviously had the eye and had caught the attention of the assistant strength and conditioning coach or whatever he is of Kentucky. They got a little pushing and shoving last night.
Yeah, I wouldn't mess with this guy Ziegler either. I think he's got some toughness to him. Strength coaches are tough too, but yeah, that was an interesting little moment there on the sideline. But I think all of that just goes back to Tennessee is they've kind of embraced being a little bit chippy, and they're not really willing to be pushed around like I think they were in the first month of SEC play by an LSU, by a Kentucky. I think this team really came back from those games and said no more. You know, we need to have this toughness and identity that they've lacked. I think Uros Slavsic contributes to that, and they've definitely seen a different mentality on the court.
Yeah, Mike Wilson brings a different mentality to this show. You can follow him on Twitter @ByMikeWilson. Of course, anywhere you consume the Knoxville News Sentinel, his writing is there.
Well, Mike, I don't know if they'll play this well, but what is the key in linchpin for them to have success in the tournament, NCAA tournament, and then what seeding do you think they'll possibly get? Let's make some bold predictions today there, Mike.
I mean, as it stands now, I'd assume they're very firmly sitting as a 4.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's probably some that'll put them as a 3 after this win. I think they're right in that 3 to 5 range, kind of regardless, probably of assuming things stay largely status quo the rest of the season. You know, if Tennessee splits with Arkansas, I think you kind of lock into that range for sure, because you assume they're probably going to go and beat Georgia and close out pretty well here. But that's kind of where it seems like it'll fall. But the tournament's always about the matchups, and I think what's been the nice development for Tennessee is that end-of-game lineup, the double point guard look, Santiago Vescovi doing what he's doing. I think John Fulkerson has played a lot better lately too. So you're seeing a lot of guys really settle into who they are and what they've got to do. And that bodes well come tournament time. But it really, I mean, at the end of the day, it truly is all about who you get, the draw you get. Those matchups matter to everything when it comes to the NCAA tournament.
No doubt about it. I guess it's 4 teams in the SEC that are, you know, doing really well. But, you know, there's a group of teams there right below there that could possibly even make the tournament. But, man, they could make some noise in the SEC tournament. Who would be your surprise team that if they got on a run and got hot in the SEC tournament to possibly make it even to the championship?
I really like Mississippi State's team.
Oh.
I like them going into the year. I like Iverson Molinar a lot. I think he's one of those players that doesn't get the attention nationally that he should. I think he's terrific. They've got a couple good post players in Garrison Brooks. They play well there. I like that group. And that's kind of – they're in that middle of the pack too right now with an LSU, a Florida, kind of that group. But that to me is that team that can get it done. I'm not super high on Florida, especially after that loss to A&M. LSU still has a lot of talented pieces, but they're going in the wrong direction. But, yeah, I think Mississippi State's a team that has a shot to make some noise.
No doubt about it. We on with Mike Wilson for the Knoxville News Sentinel. Lastly, Folky, man, he seems like he's the old Folky again. I mean, man, I'm such a big fan of his. Man, he seems like he's always having success versus Kentucky. But it was good to see him back out there looking lively and look like him old self.
Yeah, and I thought an interesting comment last night from Rick Barnes was that when Olivier Comball went down, the coaching staff's first thought was, we're going to start John Fulkerson. And Fulkerson responded and said, don't start me. I really like the role I'm in right now. And for, a 60-year senior who's played in as many games as he has and started as many games as he has, to have that attitude really tells you how he feels about what he's doing right now and how he's doing it. And I do think the past 2 games he's shown a lot of signs of life and being an effective, consistent performer. And Tennessee does need that in the post. It's still tough to know. I mean, Jonas Adu was terrific yesterday. I don't know that you can say, hey, he's going to play 18 minutes every game and be awesome. Uros Plavsic has had moments, but is inconsistent, and Brandon Huntley-Hatfield has not been reliable for the most part. So having John Fulkerson be that guy is paramount to Tennessee being the team that it wants to be.
Hey, did the players talk about how much the fans give them energy and impacted the game, or did that even get mentioned at all?
Yeah, they were asked about that after the game, and yeah, they certainly talked about the environment and just the way that crowd feeds into it. And I mean, Tennessee has won 15 straight at home. They haven't lost there this year, and they've won 2 games at home against Final Four contenders in Arizona and Kentucky, both of whom were top 5 teams when they came in. So I think that really does tell you the way that this crowd affects this team, because Tennessee's very, very good at winning at Thompson-Boling Arena.
Yeah, it was so electric. I wanted to drive down there and go to the next game. That's how much I was into the game, man. It was awesome. We're on with Mike Wilson, Knoxville News Sentinel.
Mike, what's the Vols' best lineup to put on the floor? Which 5?
I really do think it's that closing lineup.
Yeah.
There's a Kai Ziegler, Kennedy Chandler, Santiago Vescovi, Josiah Jordan-James, John Fulkerson group. The big man in that group has been a revolving door at points. It was Uros at times, Olivier at times, but I think it's John Fulkerson at this point. And it really does remind me of that lineup that they rolled out a couple years back that was Lamonte Turner, Jordan Bone, Jordan Bowden, Grant Williams, and Admiral Schofield. Small ball lineup, 4 guards essentially. So Admiral was the 4 there. Josiah is in this group. That lineup's effective. It's tenacious on defense, usually has a lot of energy left, does well offensively, moves the ball. And I think that's a lineup that's very effective for Tennessee.
Do you think one of the big guys needs to kind of take the reins, whether it's, Fulke would be the obvious guy just because he's been there forever. And there was that magical period a couple of years ago where it seemed like this guy was just riding a rocket ship to basketball fame. But I know COVID and other things have kind of derailed him and being nicked up by injuries. Can they keep doing it post by committee, or does somebody need to really grab that thing for them to make a deep run?
I mean, ideally, you know what you're going to get out of all of those guys. And if you do, then you know which one is kind of that bell cow of the group. And I do think ideally it's John Fulkerson. I do think Uros Plavsic has shown he's capable of doing that in stretches. He was very good in January when John Fulkerson wasn't. And Olivier Comball was kind of inconsistent. So, but knowing what you're going to get is key. But Tennessee has 4 post players, really, and 2 of them are freshmen. And Jonas Adu, as we talked about, has barely played. Brandon Huntley-Hatfield has such a small role in most games despite starting the past few games. So when you've got 2 of those guys as freshmen, it is hard to know what you're going to get. So by default, John Fulkerson's kind of got to be the guy.
Yeah. What do you think is the best conference in college basketball right now?
Ooh, that's a fun question.
Yeah,
it's not the ACC, I can tell you that
anymore, right?
Definitively not the ACC. Big Ten's got a lot of very good teams, but Michigan State's sliding. Michigan hasn't really been where it's supposed to be. The Big 12 certainly has a lot of very good teams. I mean, we saw Texas and Tennessee Tech on Tennessee's schedule this year. Oklahoma's a tough team. Kansas is always Kansas. But the SEC right now, kind of that top 3-4 team in this conference, especially with Arkansas playing so well.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas. 3 of those teams will probably be top 10 teams entering next week. Or no, Tennessee will probably be right on the outside, depending on what happens at Arkansas. So right there, we've got 2 top 5 teams as it stands. Tennessee's 13th. Arkansas is back in the poll. So you're talking 2 Final Four contenders, and Tennessee's on a rapid rise, and so is Arkansas. So as far as top tier goes, I mean, the SEC's gotten the top tier as good as anyone.
Man, it's crazy to say after what we watch them do in football every year. And watch out, here we are with basketball again. Mike Wilson, our guest, talking Vols and college basketball and more right here on Blaine and Mickey.
Yeah, I guess one more for me. Do you feel like Kennedy Chandler is finally kind of living up to that billing, big-time recruit, and he's finally kind of putting it all together, or that's still kind of work in progress? Because it was a big difference between this time they played Kentucky and and the last time.
I thought Kennedy was really good early in the season during the non-conference, including at Colorado, Power 5 opponent on the road, Power Conference opponent on the road. He did taper off early in SEC play, did have COVID, missed that Alabama game, came back. What wasn't super effective for a stretch there, and I think a lot of that had to do with seeing how teams are guarding you differently. You're dealing with a lot more physical play, adjusting to everything that's going on. I do think the past few games, ever since the South Carolina game, I think Kennedy's been tremendous. And honestly, at the halfway point of SEC play before that game, I would say Zakai Ziegler was Tennessee's best point guard at that time. And Kennedy wasn't. But right now, both those guys are playing terrific basketball, and Kennedy was outstanding against Kentucky last night. He really took over the game early in the first half, scored 8 straight points, which is when Tennessee kind of stomped on Kentucky and kept going. And I thought he was very in control at South Carolina, very in control last night, very much made some plays down the stretch against Vanderbilt that won the game. So, yeah, I think he's playing great basketball, and that's obviously great news for Tennessee because they can throw Zakai and Kennedy at teams, and that's a lethal little pair.
We're on with Mike Wilson, Knoxville News Sentinel.
All right, on the way out, Mike, who is your number one team? Who is the best team in the country?
Gonzaga. I think I don't know that nationally everyone knows who Chet Holmgren is, but I'm not sure if people understand how rare what he's doing is statistically, just in terms of percentages and averages. I mean, he's having a generational type season, and that's just such a special player. I think that team is terrific. I certainly think Auburn's in that conversation right now. I think Arizona, Kentucky, a lot of teams are in that conversation. But yeah, I think Gonzaga, especially because of Chet Holmgren, is a very special team.
Well, with that being said, then are those your final 4 teams and Gonzaga cuts the nets? I mean, hey, man, I like where you're going here.
Hey, that's all about the matchups. Like I said, depends on who those teams draw. I mean, let me put it this way. I was covering that South Carolina team that made that Final Four run, and that took them beating Duke, who was a 2 seed. They had to go and beat Baylor in the second weekend. It really just does come down to who's hot and who gets the right matchups at the same time because there's a reason those upsets happen. There's a reason people love that tournament so much.
Cool.
Man, great stuff. Always love catching up with you, buddy. Again, by Mike Wilson. You can follow him on Twitter or just check out the Knoxville News Sentinel. Subscribe, and you can read everything Mike writes, and you'll want to read all of it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, baseball coming up, too.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yes, sir. The one and only Mike Wilson. When we come back, there's a Colts player who admitted that during the offseason, he thinks about a Titans player every day. He thinks about him. Yeah. So I want to let you hear that. Also, I want to ask Blaine Bishop, did he think of any players on other teams every day during the offseason? Because we're in the offseason now. It's time to talk a little offseason. Who you thinking about next on Blaine and Mickey? Blaine and Mickey, 1045 The Zone. Darius Leonard, you know him. He got
linebacker for the Colts, right?
Yeah, he got trucked by Derrick Henry in the first meeting. Was that in the first game against them or the second game? It was the first game, right?
It was here. First game.
Where he
I'm gonna take that. He got trucked. I mean, he went and tried to knock the ball out, and he said he was going to try that beforehand. And if it looked bad, oh well. But he may have a shot of getting the ball out. But it did look bad. But he
sort of swung at the ball, and then all of Derrick Henry hit him, like kind of falling downhill, like if a piano fell on top of you down a flight of stairs. Mm-hmm. But you're right, and he owned it. And you think. Because you've talked about this.
That shows that he thought about what he was going to do in his plan of attack. Yeah.
Right. He had a plan.
He knew the results could be bad, but he said, guess what, I'm going to go for it because I'd rather have a shot at getting a turnover than getting trucked. He didn't care. He knew, he knows he's good, and it didn't really matter. Everybody can watch the tape and see, even though he's going to be on a lot of highlight reels.
He did make the tackle.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fumbling, stumbling, bumbling tackle. But, yeah, that's what he does. So, I thought it was a unique play to even go for it. I would have just went for the tackle. See, that's the difference between those elite dudes and just good dudes. Yeah, he really reminds me a lot of Keith Bullock. And I don't know if it's just a number, but it's his style of play, how he looks in his uniform, and he's a playmaker. Yeah, their games are very, very similar.
He is. I watched a special on Darius Leonard, and he said the first thing that he saw after he'd been drafted, someone called him getting picked by the Colts, where they picked him the worst draft pick either of the year or in history, something like that.
Because he was a second rounder, right?
Second rounder.
Because nobody heard of him because he what did he go to HBCU school?
He did. He went to like Alabama State or somewhere like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so he gets drafted, and of course, people want you to draft names that they know, and then when they don't draft if it's that linebacker from Alabama, that's a great pick. Mm-hmm. But it's from Alabama State Tech, that's the worst draft pick ever.
Yeah, and he showed that instantly when he got out there that, hey, man, I'm that dude.
Yeah, he's that dude. But who is that dude's that dude? This is from Jim Wyatt. This is from the Pro Bowl. Jimmy Wyatt out there hustling. Talked to Darius Leonard, and they were talking about the offseason, and he told Jimbo who he thinks about every day while he trains.
It's amazing going competing against him. He's a good friend of mine, but, like in the offseason, I think about, him. When I'm working out, what drills that I'm going to do to make me better to face Derrick Henry, one of the best backs in the league. He's about 200. I always joke, say he's a defensive end playing running back. He's just great, man. He's a workhorse, and you can see it in the offseason. You can see in the fourth quarter when things get tough. He's breaking a run for 70 yards, and that just goes to show, what type of player he is.
So that's kind of the way Eddie George and like Ray Lewis back in the day used
sir.
to. So you kind of the same thing with you. That's your kind of measuring stick.
Yeah, you got to, because you face a guy in your division twice a year, someone who's told the ball a lot, and he's a freight train, to break down. So you got to make sure you understand, who you're playing against and how you want to compete against him.
So Darius Leonard, and you've talked a lot about your offseason. You would target things you needed to get better at, so you'd work on those during that particular offseason. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who said he's in the same division. I got to see him twice a year. I joke that he's a defensive end playing running back. But obviously, I think it's interesting for fans to get that perspective from a player, for him to literally say, yeah, every day when I'm working out, I'm thinking, how can I beat Derrick Henry? How can I stop him? That's a guy I got to stop to get to where I want to go.
Yeah, and I think he was referencing more of, when he's kind of on those days where it's just a grind and he's trying to pick himself up. He's thinking about, okay, what is Derrick Henry doing right now? Yeah, I think I would put it in that kind of frame, in that conversation, because guys that are as good as Darius, Leonard, they don't need any really motivation.
Right.
They know they're great. They're trying to continually be great, and they're self-motivated, and that just gives them the extra edge when the grind starts getting tough in the offseason, and you start thinking about the elite players that you're going to be facing and what are they doing right now. And I think that's what he was talking about. And, for me in the offseason, I would always focus on myself about what I can do to be better at my skill set. I couldn't try to be better than what my skill set provided me. So I wanted to improve in every facet of the game that I was, because just because of the scheme and the system, everybody's like, oh, man, he's always in the box. But actuality, I was a cover guy. I wanted to cover. So I would always think about what Shannon Sharp or Gonzalez and those guys that I'll be facing that were elite guys and put me on that, map in their eyes that I was an elite player. And I felt like I held my own in covering them one-on-one. I remember going into the Raven games that we actually lost. I told the coach, Greg Williams, I want to check him every play, man to man. That's who I want. I'm tired of him always talking. And, then as soon as we play zone, he catches a long ball, and I got pissed. I bet if I go back and watch the film, you can see me yelling to the sideline. Like, I don't want to run that play. I told you we shouldn't run that play. And that might have been the biggest play of the game, at least as far as their offense. But every other time, I should have got a pick, didn't catch it. He ran a slant. I could tell you their passing routes when they would split him out one-on-one. Okay, if I play off, they're going to run a slant. If I get up in the press, they're going to run a go. I'm going to do the press bail. I can go through that whole machination of how they run their offense and what they like to do. And I could still remember it today. And I was like, I'm going to make all these plays. They're going to know that, hey, man, that guy legit, I'm going to have to stop throwing to you. So that's kind of really, gate. I mean, all the elite guys that I would be facing, running backs. So I was kind of a self-motivated guy, but more trying to be the best version of what I can be, that God-given talents that I was gifted with, and not try to be somebody that I wasn't. And I think if guys focus on that more so than anything else, everything else, you're a competitive guy. To a fault, you wouldn't have made it this far. So all those things will happen in the game.
I love hearing you talk about coverage, because how well you studied. So you had, like you're saying, I knew if he lined up here, he was going to run this. I knew you knew their pass routes. I love hearing you talk about that. The other thing is, just knowing that chess match and how much you seem to like that.
I
you
do.
Against the offensive coordinator, you against the quarterback, you against the guy you were covering.
I did.
That's fascinating to me. And you were keeping all that flowing in your head during the game.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And that's another characteristic trait that I want from my elite players. And even when you're talking about drafting them, how quickly do they think and adjust in the snap? You can have an elite talent, but if they're not quick thinkers in the National Football League, they'll only be average players in the National Football League. You have to, and this comes from all the quarterbacks are that way that are really good. I mean, maybe that was the trait that I don't know golf, but maybe that's the trait he just didn't have.
Right.
That he just wasn't a quick thinker. That people talking about, he was always in his head telling them what plays to check to, and then they turn off his mic and everything else. So I think those players who can think quickly and break down a play immediately, and I kept a notebook on all the coordinators and players that I would refer to jog my memory, because the coordinators are going to run the same offense when they go to another team. So you got to understand, and then how they like to attack your scheme is different than, you turn on the tape and go, man, they didn't do any of this stuff against us. Well, yeah, because they didn't feel like that would work against our scheme and system. So you have to go in there with that mindset. And it's kind of, the same as being actually a coordinator. It's kind of how you have to think as a player. I don't know if a lot of players probably didn't think that way. They was more just concerned about doing their job. But I love that chess match, and I think a lot of it comes from just my background in that I was a big-time chess player growing up, and I used to love that. And I didn't win a lot. I won some. And so I like to anticipate what's coming and what the counter move is going to be. And you probably always hear me talk about counter moves and everything else, because I love to anticipate. When I get it right, I'm like, oh, now I'm going in for the kill. So now I got to go make that play. It kind of all matches up to the same thing for me. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But guess what? I would think, and guess what? If I win the majority of my times, and that's kind of when I looked at my grade every time, if I win 8 out of 10 in my personal one-on-one matchup, hey, man, that's a passing grade. And most of the time I was 9 out of 10. Yeah,
so they a lot of games too.
Mm-hmm.
We got to win our way out of this first hour and make it to the second hour. We'll do that. Jordan Dajani is going to join us in hour number 2. Lots of NFL headlines to get to. Bengals head coach with the extension. There's lots going on. We'll get to all that headlines next right here on the chess match that is Blaine and Mickey.
When I'm getting my extension.
It is 2:03. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Cincinnati Bengals announced today they have signed head coach Zach Taylor to a contract extension through the 2026 season. This comes after the Bengals were able to break through in year 3 of the Zach Taylor era, going 10-7, winning the AFC and falling in the Super Bowl after winning 6 total games in his first 2 seasons. Taylor also came out and said Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow played through a sprained MCL in the Super Bowl loss to the LA Rams on Sunday. It is day 12 of the Winter Olympics in Beijing. The U.S. sitting third in gold medals and total medals behind Norway and Germany. Some events coming up tonight, including the women's 1,500-meter speed skating, women's combined downhill skiing, men's aerials freestyle skiing, and the gold medal game between Canada and USA in women's hockey tonight, right around 10 o'clock. Also tonight, Vanderbilt at 13-11 travels to second-ranked Auburn to take on the Tigers. Vanderbilt coming off a loss at Tennessee on Saturday. The Commodores have won 2 of their last 3. Tip-off tonight is at 8 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at 1, send your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. What's up, everybody? Great to have you with us on this Hump Day Wednesday. As Blaine loves for me to say this, we're at the nexus of the sports talk universe. We're halfway through the day. We're halfway through the show. It's a little bit after 2 o'clock, and we got less than an hour to go, so hold on tight. Appreciate you hanging out with us, everybody in the Zone TV chat, everybody checking in on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. By the way, just remember this. We're in the off-season now. We're always going to have guests, and we're going to be talking about things, but as things come up, as we get close to the combine, it's like 2 weeks away? Something like that. It's close, just a few weeks away. So you got a Titans topic, NFL, anything you want to go with, just hit us. This is your show too. And again, Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. If we're just talking, you can call in anytime and join the discussion. 615-737-1045.
Combine is the March 1st through the 7th. As according to Coach Mack when we talked to him the other day.
Oh, were you writing down notes about his
what he said? Yeah. That's what he said about the combine. And in the list of things that are on the docket, tags February 22nd to March 8th.
February 22nd to March 8th. Do you think – boy, the Harold Landry deal is just going to be – that is such a fascinating thing. What are they going to do with him? Because look at how good your defense is with him. But as Buck Rising said this today, and then I saw him put it on Twitter the day before, maybe yesterday, the day before, that it was his understanding Landry wants to be the highest paid
I said it yesterday.
Guy in his room. And I know you talked about it. That's going to be awfully hard to be the high because Bud Dupree got all the money in the world in the same room.
He's saying all the right things. That way you come up, if you shoot for the stars, you'll come just a little bit less than that. So then he'll still be happy if he gets just a little bit more less than being the highest paid guy in the room. I think this is a tough decision for the Titans. And as much as I really love Harold Landry and his versatility, he drops in coverage a lot. I mean, more than people think. And to still put up those kind of sack numbers this season, everything came together. But if I had to make a choice, and I know down the road this season, even if it's, as you mentioned, right before training camp or after training camp starts and you sign Big Jeff to a long-term extension, there's no comparison for me if I want to sign Simmons or Harold Landry. Unfortunately, he's a piece that I think maybe not replace his numbers, but that in totality of his career thus far is not actually who he is. He's probably more around an ASAC guy.
Landry.
And I think Simmons is one of the best, if not the best, going to be one of the best interior defensive linemen. So if I had to make that choice, I don't know what they're thinking as far as allotment for linemen and D linemen and pass rushers when you got Dupree, Autry, and then you got to make a decision. All 4 of them can't get paid. That's just it's not how you weigh your roster. So I would probably go down the road. Even tagging Landry can hold him for 1 year, but then it's a higher number to your cap.
It's about probably 18. Let's just say 18.
So I probably go down the Simmons route, and I'd let let Landry see what he actually can get and see if I can match it.
Yeah.
There's going to be some takers for sure, but I want to see where he's at because I just don't think just think about this now. $18 million a year for Landry, who I think is just a little above being a solid, really good player. And that's nothing to take away from this year. He was elite.
Yeah.
But you got to look at his career. That's why I was talking about that with Tannehill. You got to look at the totality of when he got here and who he is and say, okay, where do we pay him? Is this who he is all the time? If it's going to be, not clutch and make bad throws in critical situations. So I think I would then go down the road of signing maybe a veteran that on, not on the cheap, but just a good solid player, maybe $7 million, or I draft somebody maybe with the 26th pick. Since you don't have a second rounder, or you trade back and get you two a first, a late first, and a second. That's just kind of how I view it. As much as I love Landry, I just think I can't allocate that kind of money to the totality of the defensive line. Yeah.
I'm
not a capologist, though. But
I think you're doing a pretty good job as one, We had Brad Spielberger on, and I know, Lucas, I think you had even gotten this soundbite and put it out, or maybe it was the one that I had sent you earlier. It was him talking about Titans to extend, and you ask him a question specifically, okay, so does Aaron Donald really want to retire, or is he trying to get more money? And if so, if he's worth this much, then what's Big Jeff going to be worth? And this guy is a capologist for PFF. This is Brad Spielberger yesterday on Blaine and Mickey.
Yes, Jeffrey Simmons is an ascending stud in this league, is one of the better interior defensive linemen in the NFL already. And I think you want to get that deal done as soon as possible. I would argue even faster than A.J. Brown. You want to get him extended as soon as possible before some of these other, interior defensive linemen come up for extensions. And look, I think he has a legitimate case to be in the $20 million per year conversation.
Ooh. See, all that other stuff, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Because he said, we'd ask him about Landry, we'd ask him about AJ. You didn't mention any of those guys. You mentioned him compared to Aaron Donald, and he said, I'd get him done before AJ.
Here's what I'm going to say. How many sacks did Aaron Donald have against the Bengals?
We counted them up yesterday. He had 2.
How many did Big Jeff have?
Big Jeff had 3. And when we were talking about this yesterday, young Lucas Panzika came in the studio and he said he also had 3 against the Rams. He had 6
in the first half.
In the first
half. So this is a rising star. He finally turned the corner and being a pass rusher. And I think he's still ascending, and he's got that workman-like mind frame that he's trying to improve. So if I had to give the $18 million, I had to pick between Landry and Simmons. I'm giving the $18 million to Simmons, and I think I'm going to get him on the cheap because his contract is not up. You tell me any person is going to walk away from 18 that's making, let's just say he's making $1 million because he's still on his first contract. I don't know what his base salary is.
It wouldn't be much different.
He's still
from
on
that.
his rookie contract, and he got all his money up front being a first rounder. So I just think it's hard to walk away from 18 to say, oh, I'll just wait another year and then I'll get 22. Well, another year you could be injured and may not make it to there where you can lock in 18. And I don't think people view Landry as that kind of transcendent type pass rusher like Simmons. And so you got to go down right, just like A.J. Brown at receiver. Yeah, I agree with Brad on that notion. Yeah, but he said Simmons first. That was unique to me. Yeah, so I'm letting Landry walk and see what he can get. Because I think the league values him as a $14 million maybe guy. Yeah, I think top tier of the mid-level guys.
So at the right price, though, absolutely Harold Landry.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But let him just go see if somebody will do something stupid with him.
Yeah, not 18
And
million.
if somebody does something stupid, then you shake his hand and go, it's been amazing having you here. Best of luck.
Oh, no, you got to love me. Great guy.
Yeah.
You hope you can keep him. But, man, if you start reallocating the money, I just think, that's a tough one there.
Yeah, Big Jeff, a defensive lineman.
I mean, he could really be in the conversation next year if he continues on this trajectory to be Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah. I mean, that's on a whole nother level.
And then here's the nutty thing, just the nutty, ridiculous, stupid, crazy thing. They still have Danico Autry, too. He played lights out this year.
Right. And he's under contract.
Yeah,
so,
he's under contract.
And you get him for cheap. So, I mean, it really at this point in time, but he's an older player.
Yeah.
I kind of like the flexibility of somebody's going to get left out, and I think it's probably going to be Landry.
Boy, then you got to figure it out. Is it some mid-level? Like you said, you find yourself a mid-level. Like Zadarius Smith, who had been like a bit player, right, with the Ravens. Then he gets big money, and he gets
Green
bigger
Bay.
money, plays like a top-tier guy or like near the top tier.
And what did he get?
That was a guy that I actually wanted that year.
I did
was
too.
it Zadarius Smith? Like, boy.
But did he
Look at how few snaps he's played and how productive he is. Now just project that out. I don't remember what he got in his deal, but do you find a guy like that who's an up-and-coming guy who's going to get his second contract with you, and then you tap into that next level? Maybe he was the number 3 guy and he was behind 2 guys who are better or perceived as better. Or like you said, what do you do at 26?
I mean, they pay for sacks, so somebody's going to give him the loot.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about Landry, too, he's been so durable. And I told you this, he had 75 tackles this year. And most sack guys, if it's a sack guy, you look and he has 38 tackles or 42.
He's not up there like that.
Harold, there were so many times we were watching a game and the play gets 7-8 yards down the field and Landry ran the guy down and tackled him. Or he pursued somebody all the way across the formation to the other side of the field, like tackled some guy from behind. His pursuit and his motor are the things that I love watching most about it.
That tells me he's a workmanlike player.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this. There's a whole bunch of times I saw Jeffrey Simmons doing that.
At 300 pounds.
Bigger, massive human being running down. Sometimes he would just push people because they're getting in his way. It was just like, good Lord, this guy is a bad mamma jamma. Man, he's so special. And see, to me, when I start saying the word special in Harold Landry, I go workmanlike.
Yeah.
That he I know his numbers say special, but look in between the numbers and what he is, and he's just a really, really good player. Like, that's kind of how I view him. Nothing against him, and he's going to get paid, but he's not on that special category.
Well, and
he can do multiple things, by the way. He can drop in coverage, he can cover, he can rush. I mean, so that's a lot of value in that.
Let's take a quick phone call. Chandler in Nashville wants to talk about Harold Landry on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. What's up, Chandler?
Hey, it's actually Travis, but that's okay. I'll be Chandler today.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Bad.
I just wanted to weigh in on the Harold Landry thing.
Sure.
I agree with Blaine. The thing that I see a problem where Harold Landry is concerned, I really like him, but it took having a stable of monsters for him to finally explode, number one. And number two, Rashad Weaver was looking real good until he got hurt.
Stable of monsters is just a fantastic term that I think we should use for lots of stuff. I mean, I would just want to use that for everything. Stable of monsters.
Well, he had better players around him, and which then made his job a little bit easier. And he stepped up his game. I don't know how much he worked in the offseason. He knew it was contract year to, work on pass rush moves.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was doing the exact same thing. He was just, remember, he had the most hits on quarterbacks, too, coming into the season from the previous season. So he was getting close.
He was getting there.
Yeah,
he was in the neighborhood.
So you put better players around him, all of a sudden that turned into actual sacks.
What'd they go from 19 to 41?
Yeah. And that's also part of the secondary, too.
Yeah,
part of that, too. Yeah.
Well, the Harold Landry thing and what happens is going to be fascinating. What they do is Zach Cunningham, I wouldn't be surprised if they just told Zach Cunningham, hey, we're going to redo your contract. You can't make 10 and then 11 and then 12 and a half. I mean, not the way it currently sits. I bet that dude I bet they tear it up or they extend it, whatever they do to make voodoo where he makes the same amount of money and he's got like a $2 million cap hit this year.
Oh, I'm with that. Because it's just,
they got to.
You like the players, so you want them to find a way.
Yeah.
Even with Landry and Cunningham.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
All right, it works out great next. Jordan Dajani is going to join us from CBS Sports to talk NFL headlines. That's next on Blaine and Mickey. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Got a big parade going on in L.A. today. Aaron Donald with no shirt on. It's sort of like when Jordan Dajani joins us. He always does these segments with no shirt on. I can't figure it out. But, that's the way he likes to do it. He works along the same lines as Aaron Donald. Jordan, always good to have you with us, my man. At Jordan Dajani on Twitter. You can follow him there.
What's going on, guys? Yeah, I'm definitely shirtless today. I'm very excited for this segment. I always am. Love joining the show. Excited for the NFL season, man. That was. It was an exciting time. The Super Bowl was awesome. We made some money, which, of course, matters. Now, looking forward to an entertaining offseason.
Did I see that you had picked the Rams? Did you just pick the Rams from the jump? Was that your Super Bowl pick?
Yeah, so CBS Sports is actually very happy with me for a change. I wrote an article early in the offseason last year looking at some Super Bowl value picks. It was pretty early in the offseason, and the Rams were my number one at plus 1,300. So I was doing the same article this year and, of course, brought that up to the editor. So that was a pretty great call by me. But, yeah, man, the Super Bowl was awesome for me financially. In my official CBS pick, I picked the Rams to win, but the Bengals to cover the spread, which is exactly what happened. We hit our same-game parlays, a couple of great props as well. So everything's going really well right now. Sad to see the NFL season's over.
All right, so take Jordan Dajani to the gas station down the street from you and buy lottery tickets. He just has to wear a shirt to get in. You made money on the Super Bowl. Did McVay and Aaron Donald make untold scores of millions on the Super Bowl, or are they just both going to retire?
Oh, my.
Yeah, I know. This is kind of an interesting story, and I feel like it might have been this morning or yesterday where ESPN released that piece saying that, both men might be looking for bumps in pay as instead of retiring or walking away from football. I think there's a good possibility of that. And even if this wasn't their main goal, I think it's still something they're going to be talking about with their agents and with the franchise at large. Now, in terms of the retirement speculation, when it comes to Sean McVay, obviously nothing's for certain, but I think it was more of him just admitting that he doesn't want to coach for the next, 30 years, 20 years. He's not going to be one of those guys. He might walk away early from the game. I don't think that's going to be in 2022. But when it comes to Aaron Donald's situation, I think that's pretty interesting because I think he's 30 years old. I think he turns 31 in May this offseason, I believe. And he's a guy that, has accomplished most of everything he's wanted to do. So if he wants to walk away from the game, he can choose to do so. And the way those reports were voiced by NBC, literally moments before the Super Bowl, by the way, which was absolutely bizarre, it sounded like there was a good chance of that. But according to this new report from ESPN, Aaron Donald may be more interested in just trying to become the highest paid defensive player instead of hanging up the cleats altogether.
Yeah, I'm interested in that, too, for myself. What's funny, people are like, this would be unprecedented. This has never happened if Sean McVay to step away. John Madden did that. He was the OG of doing that. He coached 10 years, won over 100 games. He's the highest career percentage winning. And then he went straight into TV. He quit in 78 and 79. He was on your TV set.
Well, it never happened because it was no social media.
Yeah, right. Because if it didn't happen on Twitter, it didn't happen.
Yeah, and I want to bring this up, too. I remember being on your show a few weeks ago, might have been a month or two ago, and I think Alex Apple was filling in for Blaine, and he asked me what other coach or what other NFL figure is going to have an impact on the league that was similar to John Madden. And I was kind of on the spot, but I did bring up Sean McVay. And it's kind of funny to see this report coming out now that, he might want to step away for a little bit, even if that's 3 years from now, start doing TV work and then, reignite that passion for returning to the sidelines and return as an NFL head coach one day. I thought that'd be pretty interesting.
We're joined by noted future predictor Jordan Dajani right here from CBS Sports on Blaine and Mickey.
Yeah, since his pockets are so heavy now, I expect some dinner or, some things to help me out on the side there. But all jokes aside, Jordan, the Super Bowl MVP, I was kind of conflicted. Nothing against Cup, but I thought Aaron Donald should have won it. It's really tough for an defensive guy to win it. But kind of take us through that process of how they vote on the Super Bowl MVP. And maybe can it be adjusted? Maybe so it can, maybe get some better acknowledgement on who should really win it and not always really an offensive guy.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I can take you step by step through the process of how they fill out those Super Bowl MVP votes. I have never been a part of that process, obviously, and I don't know many people who are. But when it comes to the Cooper Kupp actually being named, I think it was a nod to him just for the great season and postseason he's had. I mean, he's the guy that was a legitimate MVP candidate.
Yep.
But we understand that the MVP candidate or the MVP award is really a best quarterback award, so he didn't have much of a chance to win that. But, I mean, look at his stats just in, the postseason. 33 receptions. That's the most by any player in a single postseason. 478 receiving yards. That's the second most. 6 receiving touchdowns, tied for the second most by any player. He had 2 touchdowns in the game, so I understand why they gave it to him. Mm-hmm. But, it kind of goes back to what this award is about. When we talk about the regular MVP, as I mentioned, that's a quarterback award. When it comes to Super Bowl MVP, they lean towards the offensive side of the ball. And if you're going to score 2 touchdowns in the game, you're going to put yourself in the running. It's kind of interesting because T. Higgins was almost the favorite to win Super Bowl MVP probably by the third quarter if the Bengals won. But as for Aaron Donald, the impact he had on this game, I mean, he literally sealed the game. And a lot of people want to talk about that pressure he had on Joe Burrow on 4th and 1 that sealed the game. Well, he was also involved in stuffing the running back on that third and short the play before. I mean, he was just a one-man wrecking crew. And it started in that second half when things got chippy on the sideline after he took down Joe Burrow. And, he just turned into an absolute monster. He's definitely somebody. If it wasn't Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald would be the Super Bowl MVP in my mind.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're on with Jordan Dajani, NFL writer for CBS Sports. I'm gonna stick with the Super Bowl here and Matthew Stafford. Now that he has a Super Bowl win, how do you view his career to this point today? Because everybody's saying, "Oh, now he's a Hall of Fame player." I don't know if I'm gonna go that far, but he's definitely gonna be viewed differently, and it's yet to be determined. Until his career is over, where he will be. What do you think?
I love the way you worded that question because every radio show, everyone's been doing this week, the question's been, is Matthew Stafford now a Hall of Fame guy? And I think it's way too early to speculate on that. There's arguments for both sides of the story, so I like the way you worded that question. I think it's been a great story. I think Matthew Stafford's always been looked upon as a really good NFL quarterback. I don't know if he's always been in the top 5. No one's ever considered him to be the best in the NFL. But he was always looked at as a guy who was good and kept the Detroit Lions franchise somewhat upright. And I think it's evidenced by, or that narrative is evidenced by the fact that when he was traded to the Rams, everyone started talking about Super Bowl when it came to this LA team. And sure enough, in his first season away from Detroit, he was able to lead this franchise to the promised land. Now, was he 100% the only reason the Rams won the Super Bowl? No, of course not. But there's no doubt that he was able to elevate this offense and this team as a whole, and that speaks volumes to who he is. Now, in terms of the MVP conversation, Hall of Fame conversation moving forward, I think that Matthew Stafford is going to have to be able to keep this offense and this team in contention for years to come until whenever he wants to decide to hang up the cleats. So to answer your question, I think Matthew Stafford has really kind of reinvented himself with this Rams team. He's looked at right now as one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and on a well-established team like the Los Angeles Rams, that's going to make sure and guarantee that they're going to be contenders for years to come.
Mm-hmm. We're with Jordan Dajani, and I guess one more, and this is more a big league type question, and that is with the Brian Flores lawsuit, the Dolphins owner maybe can be proved that he tried to, I guess, throw some games as well as Snyder and whatever is going on over there. What would could the league actually force them to sell their teams going into the next season, this offseason?
So the short answer is yes, they could. But when it comes to moving owners around or kicking them out of that inner circle, I believe they need a 3/4 vote to remove an owner, and that's very tough because all these guys are very familiar with each other, and like I said, they're kind of like an inner circle. But it's interesting you bring it up because we might see some changes. I mean, not only with the Flores lawsuit when it comes to the Dolphins, but also with Dan Snyder. We saw a report come from Pro Football Talk, I think it was earlier this week, that People, the owners, at least some of them, are starting to sour on Dan Snyder. When is the drama ever going to end with this guy? There's always ongoing investigations with this Washington Commanders franchise. So at the same time, a 3/4 vote is a lot, though. I'm sure there's plenty of disgruntled NFL owners, but when it comes to actually putting pen to paper for a 3/4 vote to knock one of these owners out, that's harder said than done. But that being said, I do think it's going to be an interesting storyline to keep an eye on as we progress through this offseason.
Well, with Jordan Dajani, NFL writer for CBS Sports.
How about more just saying it in like Super Bowl pregame coverage that Colts are done more than likely with Carson Wentz. They traded a first and a third and ate a bunch of cap money. The AFC South is truly like the weird soap opera that just never stops churning. Could they really be done with him after 1 year?
I believe so. I do believe so. And I kind of almost tip my cap to them because, the quarterback position is the most important in football. And taking flyers on certain guys is important, and I think it's necessary. But what's equally as necessary is trying to figure out if you have the right guy in place to help elevate your franchise. And if you don't, then you're put on notice and you have to make a move. And I feel like that's what the Colts feel like right now. It's always scary, re-entering the quarterback carousel because you don't know if you have what it takes to land one of the elite guys like a Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. The draft is always scary, especially with a class like this that, by all indications, is not as talented as some of the quarterback crops in years past. But, it really does sound like the Colts are done, and they're going to be exploring all of their options. I don't think it's guaranteed to say 100% that Carson Wentz will not be playing for the Colts next year, but I'm leaning towards that way, certainly.
So we're getting into franchise tag season and free agent season and just all these other magical seasons that are part of the NFL offseason. Who, in your opinion, if J-Rob says, hey, Jordan, let's you and me go grab a coffee, who do I need to take care of first? Who's your biggest priority free agent for the Titans this offseason?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm starting to do my research on some of the free agency in the NFL. And looking at the Tennessee Titans, I guess you've got to start with Harold Landry, but that's kind of a tough ask because, whenever you draft a young pass rusher and it turns out he's a star, it's always scary when that rookie deal ends and you go into free agency because these pass rushers, grab attention all over the league and someone's going to break the bank for them. So it's going to be tough when it comes to Harold Landry. I was doing some research looking at, I think it's SpotTrack's market value tool, and I think they have Harold Landry at getting something like a 4-year deal, $68.4 million, that's 17.1 AAV annual. That would place him at number 10 among highest paid pass rushers. But of course, this tool on SpotTrack is not scripture. I've seen them overshoot. I've seen them undershoot when it comes to these prospective deals. And I'm sure Harold Landry is going to be very well paid. So I wonder if the Tennessee Titans are going to ask him to take maybe not as much money as he would if he were signed with a different team and try to convince him that they really do have something special going on in Tennessee. That's always possible. But Harold Landry is going to top that list this offseason.
Jordan Dajani, our guest, CBS Sports, talking all things NFL.
Man, Jordan, it's kind of a touchy subject here, and I don't know where his situation is at, but we're hearing a lot of noise, at least on social media, from the pundits and everybody who's covering the league, is that, there's a lot of interest in Deshaun Watson, at least 8 teams. I don't know if the situation will get resolved. It seems as though I have no idea where it's going, but I think it's going to come to an end at some point. What teams do you think would even, once it's resolved, would be of interest of Deshaun Watson?
It's a good question because when it comes to Deshaun Watson, not that he has a lot of ground to stand on right now, but I'm sure that he wants to have some kind of say in his next team that he plays for. And we saw a report come out recently about him liking 2 specific destinations, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Minnesota Vikings one doesn't make much sense to me because they just hired Kevin O'Connell, a guy who has experience working with Kirk Cousins. And according to reports, he went into that Vikings interview telling their front office that he's a big fan of their quarterback and Kirk Cousins, and he wants to move forward with him. So, I'm eyeing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now, to be honest with you, and I think there could be potential mutual interest. I don't think that any maybe has formed as of yet, but maybe as we progress through this offseason, we get some more clarity on this Deshaun Watson situation. There could be interest there. The Buccaneers are in a kind of precarious spot. I don't want to say that they're entering a rebuild, but there's a lot of indications that they somewhat are with their looming free agents, with them needing a new quarterback, with how the division is shaping up just as a whole. I wonder if Deshaun Watson could be playing for Tampa, because this is a franchise that doesn't want to go back to where they were before they had Tom Brady at quarterback. But, of course, it all comes down to finding some kind of, closure with this whole situation. And I hope everyone realized, because, this whole regular season, we used to see reports come out every week about Deshaun Watson, but all of that, wasn't substantial. It was nothing to move the needle. It didn't affect anything when it comes to trying to come to closure with this entire off-field issue. Hopefully we get that this offseason. I imagine we will, and then we can start really refocusing on where Deshaun Watson might play. But keep an eye on Tampa. I think that's kind of an intriguing landing spot.
Well, speaking of Tampa, I guess last one for me, and that is Tom Brady. When you retire, how do you come out of retirement? How does that affect Tampa Bay? Do they have your rights? Because a lot of people saying, once all the dust settles, that he just really maybe wanted out of Tampa, time to move on, and that he wanted to go, back home for a team he loved in San Francisco. So how does this whole process work if he does come back, even if it's after the season starts?
That's a good question, and I think it really comes down to the contract that you were currently on before you decided to hang up the cleats. That's the first thing I really got to look into. And I think Tom Brady was under contract at least for one more year.
Yeah.
So if Tom Brady wanted to come back into the league, there obviously would have to be some kind of discussion to figure out if he would have the rights to go play wherever he wanted
So they'd have to
kind of
trade him.
sign as a Yeah, or trade his rights. But it's Tom Brady at the same time, the greatest player that's ever lived. So he might have special conditions when it comes to the Buccaneers allowing him to chase his own free will. But the other thing is, I truly do believe that Tom Brady is retired. I don't think he's going to come out of retirement in 2022. I know we've seen some kind of funky reports come out from the NFL Network talking about how Tom Brady might be looking to chase another Super Bowl. He just didn't want to do it with the Buccaneers. I'm not putting much stock into that. I think Tom Brady's going to be done and be retired. But if he does decide to come back, I think the Buccaneers would have to trade his rights, because I do believe he's under contract for at least one more year with Tampa.
And that same situation's with Aaron Rodgers. Even though he's not talking about retirement, he'd have to get traded or released by the Packers, which I know they're not going to do that, to go anywhere, right?
Correct, but that's an interesting situation too, because there was one of the conditions the Packers and Aaron Rodgers agreed upon before the start of last season, saying that they were going to do everything to revisit this situation and help them come to a conclusion that benefited both parties. So it sounds to me like the Packers basically admitted to Aaron Rodgers, saying that they would try to help him and pursue his goal, whatever that would be, even if that's going and playing football for a different team.
Wow. That's some clout there. Aaron Rodgers. We're on with Jordan Dajani, man. I appreciate it, man. NFL writer for CBS Sports.
Yes, sir, Jordan. Thank you, man. At Jordan Dajani. People can follow you there on Twitter or with the fantabulous crew at CBS Sports, who do a great job covering the NFL and the draft. You guys are my go-to spot for that.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you guys so much for having me on again.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
it. Same bat time, same bat channel every week. All right, we come back to close things up. I have a quarterback stat for you and Lucas that even involves Steve McNair. It's about the Super Bowl, and Steve McNair is included. This will blow your mind. And if you're a Bengals fan, or if you don't like the Bengals, you really want to hear this. That's next.
Hey, Rocket, what's my mortgage rate? Rocket, when am I closing? Is anyone there? Rockets are really cool, but they don't speak mortgage. You need a home loan expert for that. Get pre-approved for your next mortgage at thehomeloanexpert.com.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone, 3HL. They got you next. They'll get you the rest of the way home. Sounds like Ron Slay is geared up for a big day.
What's going on with Ron?
I think he's very excited about that Vols win last night. There was
he's
video involving a
cats.
fake cat getting spanked and all sorts of things.
What?
This 8-game win streak. I don't know if anybody's enjoyed this more than Ron Slay. Like anybody. I don't know if Rick Barnes has had more fun than Ron Slay during this 8-game win streak.
I don't know if anyone enjoys anything more than Ron Slay, just enjoys things. Just period.
But he loves candy and food. And I mean, he posts pictures of his cigars and things. I want to live more like Ron. I mean, I do. I don't even know how to approach life like that. I got to be better. I got to just be better at just more of everything. I think that's it.
Right, yeah, I'll let you guys, you and Ryan, handle that.
All right, I'm gonna try to handle that.
I'll just get on the sleigh ride.
I want to get in the boom boom room. So there's two different rides with sleigh. There's the sleigh ride, but then there's the next level, which appears to be the boom boom room, which does not involve a roof of any type, as I understand it. Yeah. This show ain't got no roof. This stat had no roof. I couldn't believe this.
Oh, this is
NFL on CBS.
This is McNair stat or something.
This is the McNair stat. Yep, and it also involves Joe Burrow. We talked about this some leading up to the game. We kept bringing up Dan Marino, right? Like Dan Marino is sort of the gold standard of he made it his second year, and we're like, this Dan Marino, he's going to make it 6 more times. He's going to win 3 of them.
This thing, I was in high school when he made it, and then I ended up getting to play against him his last year in the league. No, not his last year. A couple times.
I was going to say, I think he played until like 96 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I played him in our first year here. We played up there.
He had the tiny leg that he had hurt. One leg was tiny.
Yeah, his calf or something.
Oh, it was so tiny.
Yeah,
it was terrifying to look at.
It didn't affect his release.
No, his arm was not connected to the tiny leg bone.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, man.
It's
like a karate chop, and the ball was just gone.
It was the quickest.
But his balls didn't whistle, though, right? Whose balls whistled?
But they were tight spiral.
Brett Favre's. Or was it Warren Moon's balls that whistled?
Warren Moon ball whistle.
Okay.
That thing was perfection every time. I'm like, whoa, what was that? It just flew by me in practice.
Yeah, you got to look at that. And then he still played in the league forever after that. So you got to play with him and then probably against him at least once or twice. So here's this mind-blowing stat. I couldn't believe this from CBS Sports, NFL on CBS. Joe Burrow made it his second year, lost, first Super Bowl. Each of the last quarterbacks, this is unbelievable. Each of the last 16 quarterbacks to lose their Super Bowl debut have never made it back to the game.
Oh, Joe! And Joe acted like we got the same crew. We'll be back.
Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Colin Kaepernick, Rex Grossman, Matt Hasselbeck, Donovan McNabb, Jake Delhomme, Rich Gannon, Kerry Collins, the late, great Steve McNair, Chris Chandler, Drew Bledsoe, Neil O'Donnell. This goes all the way back to Stan Humphries.
Matt Ryan, no. Yeah.
This goes back to Stan Humphries. He's the first one who was the 1994 Chargers. That was the 75th anniversary of the league. That was the year that the 49ers wore those throwbacks, and they won the Super Bowl. They beat the Chargers. Stan Humphries was the quarterback of the Chargers. It was 94. I know that year.
Oh, that was my second year.
That goes back to that year. The last 16 quarterbacks to lose their first Super Bowl never made it back. Can you believe that? And some of these guys, you're like, well, Stan Humphries was a journeyman. I get it. Chris Chandler, kind of a journeyman. You played with him too.
Yeah.
But some of these names on here,
Flacco.
I mean, like Matt Ryan, Cam Newton was the MVP. Matt Hasselbeck put up a lot of stats. He finished. Well, he spent some time here. Then I guess he went to the Colts next. Donovan McNabb on the Eagles teams. You played with Donovan McNabb. Jake Delhomme got on a hot streak and took the Panthers. That was when
I was at that one.
Dr. Smooth was in that one. Yeah, Kevin Dyson.
Next year I was out of the league, yeah.
And it's amazing how many people of these guys are connected to the Titans. Kerry Collins was a Titan. Chris Chandler was a Titan. Matt Hasselbeck was a Titan at one point. Or an Oiler, some of their cases.
There are also a whole bunch of people whose players whose first name is Joe that make the Super Bowl.
I might change my name to Joe then.
Montana, Burrow.
Theismann.
Flacco.
Yeah, see? See, there's a lot of Joe. Every 7 years a Joe makes it. I say they win it though.
It's an elite name.
Yeah. So, do we have a quarterback named Joe?
No. Ryan Joseph Tannehill.
Oh, yeah. I hope it is. I hope that's his middle name. We know we're going.
Ain't no Joes, but we got to go. In the meantime.
In between time.
See you tomorrow. Peace.